Morning everybody, happy weekend. And I thought I would talk about silence and the perils of silence and the struggles of silence, and often why we hold our silences. I think it's quite a rare thing to meet somebody who has done enough work on themselves, has enough confidence to actually speak their truth and speak it well and speak it from the right place. It's all about intention, energetically and emotionally, because karmically what we think in here, what we express out here, does create a rebound, a cause and effect, a boomerang. What goes out comes back. So we can often sit in silences for many, many reasons, and it's often a very, very common trauma response, usually born in childhood, where most of our stuff usually is, our patterns of relating, our ways of handling things. And often we can fall into silences because somewhere we've learnt along the way it's not safe to speak our truth. It's not safe to be us. There's a repercussion, a consequence if we speak our truth. But the problem is that perpetual cycle of staying in survival to get through, to stay safe, to not have conflict, becomes a real problem by the time we get into adult life, and we need to learn to outgrow that, outshed that. Because the problem with staying in silence is how many of us have often thought, people around me don't really know me, they don't get me, they don't understand me. And they might not, but is it all on them? If we're not speaking our rawness, our vulnerability, removing pride, removing stubbornness, removing anger, revenge, punishments, whatever these human emotions are that make us filter down our truths, either to stay safe or because we're really struggling to be that vulnerable and own what we're thinking, because we might be embarrassed, we might feel shameful. The problem is, what happens then is people won't know us, because on some level people can only know us as truly as we'll go deep in ourselves and pull back the veil and say, here I am. If we're only pulling that veil back a tiny bit and going, I'm going to show 2% of my true feelings and the other 98% are going to be, I don't know, in line with fitting in, people pleasing, fear of conflict, fear of challenge, fear of not being liked, fear of just being rejected. All of this gets in the way of our rawness. Another typical one is why we don't speak our truth, is the stiff upper lip. Trauma response to the war in many ways. We don't do emotions, can't cope with them, don't want to go near them, they don't exist, mental health doesn't exist. Therefore, we hold back our emotions. Because exactly the same things as before: embarrassment, shame, being too needy, being too emotional, being too this, being too that. But we're only two what our unmet needs are. So we're only as needy as our unmet needs. So we can look at that in a different way. It doesn't have to be that that's a bad thing. It means that there's the need there. Why are we not compassionate about that? So speaking our truth is a very important thing, because if you want to be seen, if you want to be heard, if you want to be understood, we have to be raw and vulnerable. But there are a million reasons why that's so hard. And we're coming out of this societal era where it's weak to show emotion. It's weak to feel things. Actually, I think it takes the most huge amount of courage and strength to actually be able to own what you're feeling, because you are up against pride, you are up against shame, you are up against embarrassment, you are up against expectations, you are up against not feeling good enough, you are up against fear of rejection, abandonment, not being accepted, not being lovable. All of that is in the way of speaking your truth. However, you will drag things out forever and a day if you don't. If we cannot own what we're feeling, we're dancing around the truth of who we really are. Therefore, people won't truly know us. They'll only know the version of us we show. This is not to muddle up with, in reality, there really are times in people's lives where it's not safe to speak our truth. That can be in childhood, if we've been subject to abuse or quite toxic parents that are quite dysfunctional. It can be very unsafe. So I'm not saying just jump in and do that then. Even in adult life, in our relationships, or, you know, toxic workplaces, what have you, toxic dysfunction basically. it can be very hard to speak truth. It can be dangerous. It can be exposing. It can put us at risk. Now, I'm not talking about those situations. That's something different. However, if you're struggling to speak out in those situations anyway, there's probably some of these pre-existing, very human emotions of trauma that are exacerbating that. So at what point do we stop this silence, internal hermit? A little bit of that's healthy. Doing it because we're fearful is not the reason to hold back. But the opposite of that is if we are just shooting our truth out all over the place and we're not considering others, we're not checking in with how we're delivering, we're not looking at our intention behind it. Where are we coming from? Are we coming from here, from the right place? I'm really passionate about this and this is something I really believe in. Or is it, you know, we're just bulldozing other people and their feelings and their thoughts, we don't care because it's my way or highway? That's something very different. So expect the boomerang back. That's when you're going to get the conflict and the challenges. When we speak our truth, this is not set in stone, but when we speak our truth, my experience is when we're doing it from the right place, doing it because of a sense of doing the right thing by our own moral compass, even if that's different to somebody else's, if we're good with us, we've done a lot of work on ourselves, we can really stand on our own 2 feet with our belief system and not wobble when people come and challenge it, then that's not necessarily coming from a bad place. That's, you know, if you suddenly get conflict from that, that may not be a you problem. Does that mean you have to shut down though? We all need our authentic expression. People ask me all of the time, how do you become authentic in life? Speak your truth, but do the work on yourself first so that it really is your truth and it's not coming from all these I call them low vibe emotions because they technically are on a vibration scale. All these angers, guilts, shames, blames, all of this is a platform that we all have, and we can work and heal from that. So that when we're deciding to express something, we're coming from a higher level emotion. Kindness, consideration, love, self-respect, passion, all these things, which means that the energy that we're expressing is coming from a different place. And I tell you now, it can pierce through the veil of other people's egos enough that they can hear you just enough to be able to start to get you to know you at a deeper level or hear where you're coming from. If we're coming from these other emotions when we speak our truth, get ready to be not heard, get ready to be shut down. All these things can be worked through, but it starts with, I feel this. This is the way I feel. How much do we not say what we're feeling and we say something else? So we might be deeply hurt, but instead of saying I was really hurt when this happened, me, own it, not blame. I felt this when that happened. How much do we actually alternatively go down the anger route? I've done it loads. I spent most of my life in that and not communicating and being very silent. And believe me, if I can break through it, anyone can. But the opposite side of that is we might express that exact hurt through anger. And that person that's receiving our words are receiving the anger, not the actual core wound. So expect Chinese whispers, miscommunication, exacerbation of a pre-existing wound, and not to get your needs met or to be heard or understood. But the most important part of this is that you hear you. You hear your truth, you hear your need, you hear your wound, and you stick up for yourself, you protect yourself, and you advocate for yourself by speaking your truth and being okay that it may not be other people's truths and they may not get on board with it. Do you this or do you this? Know thyself, know you, know what your truth is, know what you're holding back. What are you going to do with it? Happy healing, everybody.